Simon, your comments on AJ and his defeat to Usyk triggered Tony Bellew, former fighter, of course, very much this morning. He was speaking to Laura while you were being chauffeur driven in this morning to this building. Just a reminder for those who didn't hear Simon yesterday, this is what he said on this very show.
I think it's a combination of exasperation meeting entitlement, and by that I mean he's exasperated and frustrated by the fact that he could not better this guy, and ultimately he has a sense of entitlement because he's been led to believe that somehow or another he's something that he's not. I keep hearing this narrative that Anthony Joshua rebuilt British boxing and that Anthony Joshua is responsible for the increase in British boxing. Well, I'm sorry, they put 90,000 fans in against Froch Groves before Anthony Joshua was ever doing stadium fights, so that's nonsense and diminishes other fighters. You then look at the scorecards and look at this fight and all of its nuances and peculiarities. That was not a split decision. That was a split decision because somehow it validates the next chapter of Anthony Joshua on DAZN, where someone can monetize him there because he was beaten convincingly by Usyk. Usyk was the better fighter. Then you go into the post-fight rants about what he's entitled to, how he views the world, and why he needs to handle a Ukraine flag and virtue signal on the back of that, and think to yourself, what's the purpose of this? Why do you need to do that? That's a sense of entitlement. And then you go to the fourth stage of the situation, which is the post-match conference, when the pound hound, Eddie Hearn, has got on his ear and gone, hang on a second, you've just killing this golden goose here. We need to see a bit of contrition. Let's see a little bit of pullback from this. So we see a very emotional Joshua, which I believe is contrived, and then we see a set of tweets.
You think that's contrived?
I believe there's embarrassment behind it, and I believe there's humiliation, but there's also a tacit awareness of the ridiculousness of the outburst. And by the way, when he talks about respect, he doesn't want respect, he wants fawning deference. If he wants to find out what his respect is, go down to his ATM and look at the 40 million quid that he earned from his fight. There's your respect, pal. I don't think there is a need to tear this guy to pieces because of a ridiculous outburst. But there is also to get some context on what Anthony Joshua is and isn't. Whilst, he sits in this country and makes observation about the discrimination of this country, while sitting with a broadcaster that goes and has to indoctrinate us every week about discrimination, whilst broadcasting from a country that arguably has some of the biggest discrimination in its society. There's so much hypocrisy surrounding this fight. Anthony Joshua now is at a crossroads because I don't see him fighting for a world title again for at least 2 years.
So there we go. That was yesterday. 24 hours on. Tony Bellew's on with Laura.
Not bad, that, actually.
On breakfast. I think you were quite impressed by yourself there,
that
weren't you?
That was all right, wasn't
it? Yeah. I noticed you were nodding in agreement with you.
Writing notes down on my own things.
It certainly triggered Tony Bellew earlier this morning. And Bellew, who I've known for many years and love, really had a pop.
That man hasn't a clue. All he does is use big words to confuse and contradict himself. He's an absolute clown. First and foremost, he makes out right. Some of the points he's just made there about Alexander Usyk beating Anthony Joshua, yes, give him his credit 100%. Yes, he went out there and he put the performance on of his life. He was brilliant. He really was. And he won the fight, in my opinion. No questions asked. Split decision? No, I don't think it was. But let's just talk about the points that Simon Jordan's made. The first point that he makes is Froch and Groves fought in front of 90,000. Well, obviously, you don't listen to Carl Froch very much because it was 80,000. So there's the first fact and point you've made wrong. Second point is Anthony Joshua made stadium fights happen in our country on a regular basis. He's the first fighter in this country to ever do it. It wasn't happening before then. Yes, we've had big stadium fights, one-off events, the likes of Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank rematch at Old Trafford. We've also had Carl Froch and George Groves happen at Wembley Stadium because they're big one-off events that happen. Anthony Joshua is the first fighter in UK history to take fights to Wembley Stadium on a regular basis, the Millennium Stadium on a regular basis, took fights to Saudi Arabia for the first time in their history, goes to New York, fills Madison Square Garden. This boy has genuinely changed how boxing is seen in this country. That's the first factor to get off. He also talks about DAZN making it a split decision and monitorizing anything that was going on with that decision. Now, let's just get it straight. Judges have no care in the world for DAZN. Judges only care about being paid and scoring fights. That's the top and bottom of it. So that's another fact he got wrong. He spoke about Anthony Joshua's wanting to feel that he could go on the microphone and say whatever he wants and do certain things. He also misses the fact of when Anthony Joshua first loses that fight and Alexander Usyk gets that Ukraine flag and puts it on his back, Anthony Joshua holds half of that flag and holds it up in the air. This is before the decisions come in. Tell him to have a look at the video again and see what he's doing because he's obviously got that massively wrong. He's just an absolute prat at times. He also then goes on to say that after he has the outburst in the ring, which he's done. He's made the mistake. Big deal. I forgot that Simon Jordan was absolutely perfect and gets everything right, which he obviously doesn't. But let's just go on that one. He said Eddie gets in his ear and tells him to, think about what he's done. The words he actually used is contrived tears. Who are we watching here? Denzel Washington or Anthony Joshua? How could he possibly think that was acting from Anthony Joshua in that press conference? The boy's genuinely heartbroken. He's just lost the biggest fight of his life to date. He believes 100% he's going to win that fight going into the fight. And let's also not forget, he's probably just been punched well in excess of 100 times in the head before he's had the outburst in the ring and then had the breakdown in the press conference. Simon Jordan has no idea what it's like to get punched in the face, what it's like to have a microphone stuck in your face after a press conference, in a fight, whatever have you. He has no idea. So how does he feel the need to get all these facts off his chest? Basically, Simon Jordan fancies Tyson Fury and he absolutely adores and loves him. He forgets the fact of Tyson Fury's the man who, yes, went to Germany and beat Vladimir Klitschko 100%, but he also forgets this is the same man who self-imploded and put the heavyweight division into the absolute chaos and mess that it's in now. He's also the same man who failed a drug test. He's also the same man who's kicking a man when he's down. The same thing that Simon Jordan's doing. He's kicking a man when he's down. What an absolute coward. I couldn't think of anything worse. He's bang out of line with the things he's labelled him. And I absolutely guarantee you, he'd probably see him and ask for his autograph. That's the worst part about it. He's just have a little bit of humility. And that's basically, I've got it all off my chest now. That's about it, guys.
So, I mean, you would hear from that. Laura, Saunders and Parla let that go pretty much uncontested.
I bet they defended my virtue, didn't they?
Exactly. We didn't hear much from them. But we will hear plenty from you because you stand by every word, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think there were some points in there that Tony makes that are correct. The stadium was 80,000 at the first fight, the second fight for Foxgrove, so he's correct to pull me up. I said it was 90,000. There's 80,000.
84 or something.
Well, there you are. There's your technicality, and using big words and confusing and conflicting myself. Sometimes it might be right, but listen. The bottom line is I have a view of the fight. I understand with these guys that unless you've laced your gloves up, you don't have a right to have an opinion. That's the age-old adage. Soonest got in front of it yesterday by taking it away from me by saying if I ever put that argument in front of you, it means I'm losing the argument. I'm happy to debate Tony Bellew. I will downsize the syllables. I will bring it to a level that we can communicate on, and I will have a debate with him about the reasons why I saw it the way I saw it. I don't believe that Anthony Joshua had the right to rock back into that ring and steal the other guy's moment, and then to espouse the world of his views about how he saw his career and how he sees the landscape of things that he doesn't understand. I do believe that the argument that Tony advances is that judges aren't affected. Oh, please, Tony, I know you know more about boxing than I'll ever know, but we all know that judges are affected by circumstances. Otherwise, how do you explain the Josh Taylor, Jack Catchell decision that most people, that even the most laymanesque person would view that as a very, very dubious judging decision? I do believe that there's manipulation in boxing, and that DAZN have a situation with Eddie and the Golden Goose, that to maintain credibility, the best outcome from that fight was to make it look like it was a fight that was more compelling and close than it was. And all of those things aren't conspiracy theories. They are a view. I don't know why Tony needs to be so triggered. Maybe it's because he works for DAZN and wants to protect his own pitch. Maybe because he trails in the wake of the Anthony Joshuas of the world and feels that somehow or another he owes him a debt. But I think an honest observation that's based upon, I admire Anthony Joshua in one respect, but I'm not going to sit there and say that I believe some of the things that are being said. I think if he had a team around him that told him a few more home truths and put him in a better position, some of the things that have come out of his mouth over the last 2 or 3 years, and some of the things and decisions that he's made would have been steeped in more substantial thinking. And so with all that in mind, there was no disrespect intended. The problem is when you deal with people that are very emotive about subjects and seem to want to throw names and abuse around like Tony does, they actually lose the argument by denigrating their own arguments.
Yes, yeah. Do me a favour, if you do carry on the discussion with Tony, don't put gloves on.
Good bit of manipulation,
that might be a
wasn't
bad
it?
idea.
I proved his point about using big words, manipulation.
You got there.
I actually quite like Tony and have spent many times he's done things for me in the past, so I'm surprised at the level of his outbursts and something's triggered him, but listen, people are entitled to their opinion.
Yeah,
They're entitled, as I am mine.
You had your opinion on Joshua at the weekend and his standing in the fight game.
I heard you say,
Bellew came back at you.
I heard you say that boxing is the most difficult sport to compete in.
It's the most incredibly difficult.
So I don't know. I don't understand why you would take so many of the things that happened after the fight when he went into the ring. Why you would listen to that and why you would pull that apart?
I looked at the whole.
You said virtues signalling.
I did,
and all
because
the
I
rest
felt
of
that what he was doing was unnecessary.
But everything should be taken into consideration. He was concussed. He should have had a stronger team around him to stop him going back in the ring. And everything that went on in that ring that after the fight should be ignored.
But that's why AJ apologised for what he did. I mean, it was a bad idea on reflection to go back into the ring, especially when it was Usyk's moment. And Usyk, quite rightly, was draped in the colours of his own country.
But he had a management team around him.
No, but
and he has people around him that he should listen to.
This is what I'm saying. The biggest mistake for me that I seen from Anthony Joshua: fight better if you can. He couldn't, but afterwards and beforehand, have a better team of mentors
maybe we
and
should
people.
Ask him. Maybe someone should ask him: were you concussed? Was it an error of judgment? Did you think you stole this guy's moment and it was inappropriate for you to do? And do you have any excuses for that behaviour?
We've not seen Anthony act like that before, so obviously there was something wrong.
Because
you know
because
when
he
you
knows
go
his
into
boxing career.
You know when you go.
Tatters.
No, you know when you go into.
I don't get
you
what
know
your
when you
point
go
is,
into
Trevor.
changing rooms.
I don't get what your point is when it was Usyk's moment.
When a fighter's lost a fight, you go into a changing room and you see him concussed and breaking down. He did that in public. He shouldn't have been allowed to do that. He should have had stronger people, stronger mentors around him to stop him going into the ring. I heard Fraser Clark, and we spoke about this earlier, say, I would have took a dig to stop him getting back in that ring. Yeah. That's what his people that were around him should have done. Anthony's biggest error is not having... I don't know what the people are. They might not be the gravy train, but a lot of them should have been in the way to stop Anthony getting back in that ring.
In my view, Anthony's biggest error is that he has a bunch of people around him that don't give him the truth. He is not the Messiah. He isn't the greatest fighter that's ever lived, and he isn't entitled to certain things. He gets respect. He can look at his bank balance for a £40 million fight and get respect from that.
To be fair, Simon, he doesn't call himself the greatest fighter that ever lived.
No,
far from it.
But the bottom line is I don't think that you can... first of all, I didn't say it was a cardinal sin. I said it was ill-judged and ill-advised and it wasn't his moment.
But I'm saying
I also qualified what I think of Anthony Joshua.
Take a pinch of salt.
But people are only interested in taking the negative things because they don't like it. They only like praise. Anthony Joshua has done fabulously well out of boxing and has achieved far more than perhaps he could ever have imagined in his life. But we have to call things for what they are. And this idea that no one can make an observation of Anthony Joshua, and out comes the Anthony Joshua fan club that subsequently feels they need to be triggered and defend people and call him a muppet and call him a prat or whatever else Tony Bellew thought that he needed to call me because I had a conflicting opinion to his. Yeah. I have a view. And I'm happy to debate it with Bellew, Joshua and anyone. And I'm happy to be corrected. Mm-hmm. But my view, from a top-down point of view, is this is how I see it. Isn't that what makes sport intriguing?
It is.
That's why he's got 200 million out of boxing.
And that is your view.
Instead of the three of us shouting over each other, I think what is very important here is that Usyk came out of it with enormous credit and respect because he behaved impeccably.
He did.
At the end of the fight, which he won again.
And for me, it wasn't a split decision.
And a lot
I think
of that
it was a unanimous.
Been lost because of what Joshua did.
Yes, but again, you have to go back to what he did. That's very out of his character to act like that after a fight.
But why are you trying to make excuses for him?
I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you that he was concussed.
Well, maybe he'll speak to his backroom staff or wherever the heck they are, and they can sort that out. But the bigger story is this, and this is for later, Simon, when politics and sport combine. The bigger story is Usyk won it again, and it's a toast of his war-torn country.
Absolutely, and we said this last week when he got the kingdom to give the TV rights to the country so everyone can watch it on terrestrial TV for free. The spirit that Usyk had was always going to be very difficult to break.
Imagine the pressure on Usyk at this particular time in the history of his homeland to win again.
You say the pressure. He's coming from a war-torn area. I don't think he'd feel that pressure. Because he's got an inner strength.
The weight of expectation.
He's got an inner strength of determination that he was never going to lose that fight.
He would have been aware. He even negotiated the free-to-air stuff for the country to watch him fight. He would have been aware that the whole of that country were wanting him to win that fight.
Absolutely.
And because he was a superior fighter, and because Anthony has been put in a situation now where the loss to Ruiz gave him a comeback. He had a loss to Usyk. He's now lost that second fight. His career is going in a very different direction to when he lost to Ruiz. So that's the reason why he reacted.
Incidentally, a lot of messages coming in.
I disagree.
Ted is saying Jim White backs up Simon Jordan no matter what he says. Ted, you obviously don't listen on a regular basis. The man Jordan and I go at each other's throats on a regular basis. Simon Jordan is the king of negativity on this one. Many people coming in. Simon is a guy I respect massively, but I think Bellew was bang on this topic, Simon. I think you can understand a lot of his points. Simon, I think you were spot on, says someone else. You don't need to lace up gloves to see the validity of your own comments this morning. You're right, Simon. So, I mean, it's always, after such a major event like this, everybody's got their take.
If somebody says that somebody else is sitting on a stage with contrived and feigned emotion, people are going to take exception to it. I understand that. I didn't say it for that reason, and probably is a little harsher than I really meant it, because perhaps in that moment he did feel incredibly sorry for himself and did have genuine tears. But I think subsequent to that, the tweets that are going out are PR management. They are managing the situation, and I find that a little bit cynical.
I think the reason why he was so upset is because it's so out of character the way they acted after the fight, and that is because he was concussed.
Well, he'll tell us one day,
usually
won't he?
fighters go in the changing room, break down, and have them kind of hysterics in the changing room in private with the team. His team didn't do their job in stopping him going back in the ring. That was the biggest mistake.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.